Hello, neighbors. This is Robert J. Ray, president of Organism Chapter 4, coming at you once again with some pertinent and some critical information. Matter of fact, I'm going to be talking to you about critical race theory. Now, this is a theory that so many black people don't even know exists, and it's going to be affecting their children all through the year and for years to come if they don't become aware of it. This critical theory was first coined by a guy named Christopher Rufo. He began using this term, race, critical race theory, to denounce anti-racist education, which means that they were going to start putting things in the school system that was going to let the students know the genuine truth about how America has developed and evolved the way it is. Why the black race can't realize the American dream. What was it about the black race that kept them from being successful like the white people are? And this is what he wanted to stop from being taught in the school. And he's still got a campaign going on now. And this was the study of racist inequity. And even after the civil rights laws and anti-discrimination laws were passed, nothing has helped this at all. The blacks hadn't been helped at all. When Martin Luther King was doing the civil rights era and doing all the civil rights thing to get voters registration, after all of those years, almost 40 years, we still don't have what he was trying to do. We don't have equity for black people and people of color in America. But this critical race theory teaching in the school would let the Generation X and the millennials today, the white ones, know exactly why they've got privilege and black people don't. And they will let them know why black kids are killing each other the way they are. Because white kids ask themselves and each other, why do blacks shoot each other like those? Why did 56 people in the black community in Chicago get shot? Why are they doing that to themselves? Well, if you understand how they evolved to that point and how they got to that point, then you would be able to understand why they can do this stuff. One reason is the Willie Lynch syndrome. And this was a guy that came over to do slavery consultant back in 1711. And he came over to show the slave owners how to keep their slaves in order by dissembling them or dividing them. So what he told them was that if you pit the dark-skinned slave against the light-skinned slave, that'll cause division. If you pit the old slave against the young slave, that'll create division. If you create the black female against the black male, that'll create division. And this is how he did it. And he told them that the slave owners, if they kept this in place, it would last for 300 years and even more. And that was really the genuine truth, what he said, because in 2011, it was still going on, the Willie Lynch syndrome. Black people were still divided. The light skin was against the dark skin. The female was against the male. The old male was against the house Negro was against the field Negro. And that's still going on today. And they said that the critical race theory is not saying that the structures of America is racist because it has many layers, but the policies and around zoning and lending, and we know that, has been really racist to the American. And even the private realtors and developers have reproduced unequal access to housing, which causes gaps in income and the generational wealth. If they put up something called redlining, And that just simply means that over here we're going to have the white people in their houses, and they're going to have valuable property value over there. But the black people over there in their blighted neighborhoods, we're going to have them over there, and they can only buy houses over in that area. So the blacks never could create any wealth. Even if they bought a house, the house would be going down in value, not going up. You look at the houses in Detroit where they first started letting black people move in, and then now it's a blighted area because they couldn't keep the property value going up because they were sturdy tearing the neighborhood down. Never any beautiful yards. If they did, they would trample them down, trash in the yard. And this is how they got the black race with such inequity in America. Now, I'm going to take you back to slavery time when we had they was first freeing the slaves. But first, they had worked over 300 years in the fields for no compensation. Now, if the critical race theory, it want to teach the kids in school about this. Say, you worked this race of people 300 years in the field and you didn't pay them anything. And the generationals and the X's and the millennials, they'll have a chance to ask why. Why did you do this to the black race and you ain't paid them and you haven't paid them yet? But the white supremacists and the white people and their white fathers and grandfathers and great grandfathers, they don't want that the kids to know these things. Because then the kids are going to ask them, were you a part of this? Did we have anything to do with this? And this is going to cause them to look at how they look at their grandparents now. May not be as loving and may not be as respected as it was when they found out that this is the way you got your wealth. And this is why I have all that I can have. And I got the privilege because if you worked people and you took all of the money for 300 years, naturally your generation, your offsprings are going to be in a better shape than the black race is. And this is what this guy Rufo is trying to keep from being taught in the schools is how America really evolved. Because when you really look at the genuine truth of America, it is really a hypocritical, phony, popular delusion and madness of the crowd country. Because all of those things that they wrote in the Constitution that was supposed to be for every American is not for the blacks. They wouldn't let the blacks realize any of these things. Now, when slavery was over, and they said, and that's when Abraham Lincoln came up with the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves. And when they was freed, and after the war, then Lincoln was said that they was going to give every black slave 40 acres of land and a mule. And if they would have kept that promise, then the black people wouldn't have been in the shape that they would. They wouldn't have had to come through all of the turmoil that they came through. But when Lincoln was assassinated, and then Andrew Johnson was put in there, who was a racist from the word go, he backed off of that deal. He didn't to give the slaves the 40 acres and the mule. And if he would have, they could have made it because they knew how to farm. They knew how to do that. They could have grown their own food. They could have grown cotton and corn to sell, to make money with, but they didn't have to do it. They couldn't do it because the United States went back on their promise, like they did with the Native American, all those treaties that they made, and they almost wiped out the Indian population of America. Every inch of land in America was at one time tracked on and lived on by Native American Indians. And you can hardly any Indians anywhere in America now because they almost genocide, the whites almost killed all of those Indians and just eliminated them. And it's just a few sects left all over America now in different areas. Some of the Indian tribes were wiped out completely, but you got some still left, and they run the casinos, and now that's how they get their revenge on the whites. Is by having them to come down to the casino and lose all their money. And we've had a lot of white people right here in Mississippi lose their businesses, lose their homes, and all their savings. And you know that the Indians can't help but to chuckle about it and to have a little joy in that happening to the white race, since because white people have a tendency to think all of the evil and false things they did to a race, that after so many years that race forget that, but they don't forget it. After the slavery thing, then came the Reconstruction. This was when it looked like black people was going to get a good foundation in America. They ran for office, but then the white people depicted them in their Congress, in the House, and in the Senate. They depicted them as having their feet up on their desks and eating fried chicken and eating watermelon and drinking alcohol out of a bottle while they was in there. You know what I mean? This is the way they depicted them. And this image is hard to get rid of it. Then the Ku Klux Klan came in, and then they started to terrorize the blacks after that. And after this, after the terrorizing of the blacks, then they couldn't run for office anymore. They couldn't vote because they was afraid that the Ku Klux Klan were going to visit them in their homes at night, and they couldn't do it. And after that, it came there. Let me cut my phone off so we won't be interrupted again. So after this, the Jim Crow laws came into effect. It would not go out while I'm doing this, but anyway, the Jim Crow laws were just took away any privileges, any rights that blacks had accumulated. That just took away. You couldn't eat together in the restaurant. You couldn't ride in the front of the bus. You couldn't ride the train. You had to ride in the back of the train. You could, if you went to a restaurant, you would have to go around the back if you were going to be served. They would serve out the back door. And the water fountain, they had a black and a white water fountain. Now, I've experienced that myself. I'm old enough to have experienced these things. And the Jim Crow laws was created to continually hold the blacks back. Now, the Generation X's in school today and the millennials in school, they should be able to learn, to be taught this so that they can understand why they have more privilege than the blacks do. Why it's easier for them to learn because they didn't have that monkey on their back. They were just white kids ready to learn, ready to go out and be successful and to make their dream come true in America. They didn't have it. But if you had a monkey on your back like the black kids do, then it was going to be hard. And I used to teach this when I was in the prison and did my clients alcohol and drug counseling. I would say it's like a monkey on your back, and I would let them take this picture and say you had to go around every day with a live monkey on your back. What would that be like? You would be stressed out to no end. Anywhere you went in, this monkey would be jumping all over the place, running, grabbing people's stuff, coming back, jumping on your back and stuff. This is the way it is with black teens today. They have the monkey on their back is their color. And the critical race theory is just going to teach the white kids why the black kids have so much trouble trying to be successful like them. They're going to be taught that when Andrew Johnson, the president after the United States, went back on his promise of the 40 acres and the mule, that started hurting black people then. Now you got to scrounge and try to go around and beg and borrow and steal all you can to try to take care of your family in America now. And after that, you came all the way down to the Jim Crow and then the Civil Rights era. But before that, they had a Great Depression. Now, the black race was already in a depression, all the way from slave time. But in 1928, they had the great stock market fall. Black Friday, they call it something. And the stock market fell. And a lot of white people, they couldn't take being broke. They were jumping out of windows, committing suicide. But the black race, they had been in a depression the whole time. So it was just normal, routine business for them to try to continue to make it. And after this depression, just to show you how racist the white America was, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he signed into law a bill to give money into the poor neighborhoods so that they could raise themselves up and so they could start raising themselves up and get some wealth going on in the poor neighborhoods, which was good. But the black neighborhoods, he didn't give it to them. They didn't get it. White neighborhoods got it, and they was able to build up. And you ask yourself, well, why are the blacks living over in that squalor? Why are they living over across the tracks in their neighborhood? It's because they didn't get the privilege you white millennials and a lot of the baby boomers uh, benefited from this too, and their Generation X. Yeah, you was given that hand up and that lift up from Roosevelt's New Deal, they call it. Started the New Deal. They go over the New Deal, but they claim that everybody benefited from it. But everyone didn't benefit from the New Deal. Only the white people benefited from the New Deal. The blacks, they didn't give them any money for their neighborhoods to build themselves back up. So the critical race theory is to say, hey, let's tell the truth about what really went on in America and what's going on now. The whites have always been able to get a better break than the blacks. Even in when they started saying, well, let's build something, let's build the blacks some housing to live in. They didn't go out and build the houses like they would in the white neighborhood and build them houses where the kids would have a backyard to play in and have a neighborhood that has some space between them, the houses. And they didn't do that for the black. What they did for the black, they built these concrete jungles, which they built them stacked up on each other. Like the one in Cabrini Green, which is the most famous one. And there was so much crime and robbery and rape in that building where you had to go up the elevator and get to your apartment, your little cubic. And this is what the white people said they was doing for the blacks. And they patted themselves on the back. Oh, look what we did for the black. But that put them in a position where they couldn't hardly breathe. They couldn't move. And way by the by, after so many people had been victimized there at Cabrini Green, and they did this all over the United States. They built them up inside. They let the white people spread out. They built them houses out in the suburbs where they could have room to spread and breathe. Now, the white kids in school and the blacks, they should be able to know these things so that they can figure out why the black kids have such a harder time learning and being successful and graduating from high school like the white kids. If you was white and you didn't have anything to worry about but just studying and obeying the rules, so to speak, and coming to school, then it would be a piece of cake for you to pass and move on to the next grade. But if you was in these neighborhoods where you had to watch out for the gang members and who had became gang members because they had took the fathers out of the family unit, so they was raising themselves. They didn't listen to their mothers. So the genuine truth is that this critical race theory is just going to show the kids in school why there's such a inequity in the black and the white kids. I remember when they had the Brown versus the Board of Education. This was saying that the people that sued said, hey, these schools are separate and they're not equal, which that's what they had been telling all of the people over the world when they said, well, why y'all got these segregated schools? They said, well, that's just the way it is in the South and in some of the northern schools too. That it's separate, but it's equal, and it wasn't equal. And that's why the board Brown won the case, because when they came down to look at it, and they looked at the black schools and they looked at the white schools, they say this ain't near about equal. No, we're not gonna go with this. The white schools had the buses, new buses. At one time, the blacks had to walk to school. They didn't even have a bus. But when they seen how unequal it was in these schools, then they said, you got to fix this, which they didn't fix it. And they never do. Anytime the court rules against the white race, they never go do what the court says to do. When they finally got around to integrating the school, they said, hey, you got to integrate the school. It was years and years. The whites say they wasn't going to integrate school. They closed a lot of schools down rather than the mixed races, the kids. They closed it down. White people are the race of people. They're the kind of race like if the verdict don't go in their favor, then they don't obey it. But they always telling the black, oh, you need to obey the law. You need to do what the court says to do. But if you go back and check the history out, which the critical race theory would show them that they don't want to do what the court says to do, and they won't do it. Just like now, they got the abortion case out. Mississippi, which they're the poster child for not doing what the court says rule, what the court rules. They won't do it at all. We're not gonna do it. Now they're going to the same Supreme Court to ask them to reverse the Roe versus Roe Wade, the abortion law. They're going back to the Supreme Court to say, we need y'all to reverse that law. But here they are. If you reverse the law, what if the people not going to do it anyway? But they want it to go their way. Long as laws go their way, the white way, then they laud the court. Oh, they're so wise in their decisions. Oh, how just they are in their decision when it goes their way. So this critical race theory is going to be teaching the kids the genuine truth about this. So when they go and look their parents in the eye and say, did all of this really happen? Did y'all treat the black race like this? The sharecropping and the lynching? Did y'all do the lynching? And they say it's even a lynching museum. Is that true? Is there really a museum to show how y'all lynched black people up through down through the time and up through the time? And they're gonna have to, and the white parents and the grandparents are gonna have to look at the kid and say, well, yeah, we did it. It was a different time and age. And the kid will say, what difference does the time and age has to do with lynching individuals? And was anybody ever prosecuted for these lynchings? And this would be a great place to take the millennials and the Generation X to the lynching museum up there in Montgomery. Just let them walk around in there and look at all of the people that the white race lynched in America. When the blacks were supposed to have the same rights, same pursuit of happiness that the whites have. So now when the critical race theory is taught to these Generation X's and the millennials, then they're going to look at not only the government and their parents in a different light. They're going to look at themselves. And they're going to say, well, we had it all going our way. We had the privilege. No wonder blacks has got bad mental health. And they do. And this caused a lot of bad mental health, the way you was treated. If you was treated like the blacks was treated, you would have, it would have been suicides all over the place. But since the blacks have what you call fortitude, perseverance, and endurance, then they survive. And they did survive, and they prospered. And now you got a lot of black people who are millionaires, and now you got them becoming billionaires. But there's still the majority can't realize their dream. They have talents. The one that's making it in these United States, that the forefather said that was for everybody. Look at the little white farmers, the one that came from China and Germany and Poland and France and England and all of them, and now have become citizens and realize an American dream, and they don't understand that. But 50% of the reason that they're getting their rights and their dream that they're realizing is because of the color of their skin. They are white looking. Just think about it. When the foreigners came over here and they sell wherever they sell that in these United States, when they became a citizen, they was able to walk right on down to the courthouse and register to vote. Listen to how that is. When you let these millennials and these Generation X understand this in the critical race theory, that their parents was able to stroll right on down after they took their oath of citizenship. They were able to stroll right down to the courthouse and register to vote. They didn't have any tests about how many bubbles there is in a bottle of soap. They didn't have these kind of questions asked them. But here the black race was, and I know they would ask, well, the black race, they were born over here. Why can't they vote? And the government and the white people are going to have to answer these tough questions to these millennials and generations. Why did you have to pass a law, a voting rights law, for people who was already born in this country and was already citizens? Why couldn't they vote? All of these things held black people back from realizing what was supposed to be realized in this country, which was life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and the freedom, the right to vote, and to try to be successful in this country. And wasn't able to do that. These kids in school today need to understand that. Why is all of the patents that's out? Black people created a lot of things to make this country great. Some of them was the traffic light. A black person was the first person to do a blood transfusion. And then when he got killed and got in an accident, they wouldn't even give him a transfusion, and he invented the thing. Millennials need to know this. Generation X need to know this. A lot of patents, the cotton gin, they claim Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. No, it was a black person. He invented it because he was the one that had to pull the seeds out of the cotton. This is the way was done. The black was pulling the seeds out of the cotton so the cotton could be baled up and sent out and made into material. A black man figured out a way that, hey, if we had a suction thing, we could suck all of this out and do it. in which that's where it was. But he couldn't get a patent. So what happened? The individual that invented it, he couldn't progress off of it. But the Eli Whitney, who got it, he did the patent and he made the money off of it. The same way with the way they learned how to oil engine wheels and railroad wheels on the engines. They used to have to stop every now and then, and a black dude would have to go out there and squirt the tire wheels so that they wouldn't freeze up. Isn't that it was a dude named, he might not have been known as McCoy, but he was the one that invented this. It was automatic oiling of the wheels on the train. That was a patent that's still probably being used today, that a black family could have made money off of and could have been building their wealth on. But since the black man couldn't do the patent, the white man, they called it the real McCoy because it was all the wheels while the train was in motion. That was a great thing that happened. So all of these things cause bad mental health in the black race, and it caused them to do a lot of destructive things. And that's why the prisons is full of black people today. And that would be and the critical race theory being taught in the school would be the genuine truth on what this country really is. It's not going to destroy the country. It's going to let the kids understand why they have the privilege that they have, the white kids. If your skin was white, it doesn't make any difference what country you came from than the black kids were. And you are getting a better opportunity than the black kids are. Now you would be able to go home and look your parents in the eye and say, look, this wasn't right. Do you think this was right? For you to use other races of people so that we could have the riches that we got and own the land that we got and live like we live, and the blacks have to live like they live? I don't think that. I think they would kind of protest that, and they would look at themselves in a different light. And it's like the critical race and the white supremacists. They don't think that slavery, Reconstruction, and Jim Crowism and all of this, they don't think that has a bearing and an effect on our society today. They see, white people think that people forget things that they do to them, and it doesn't. My cousin Luther was shot down by the deputy sheriff in '59 down there in Philadelphia, Mississippi. He was shot down because he was trying to get with a black woman that the sheriff's friend was sleeping with. Shot Luther down. Do you think our Jackson family have forgotten that? They ain't forgot that, and they never will forget it. Do you think all of those black people that were lynched and all of their families that had to suffer their loved ones being lynched, do you think they've forgotten any of that? And do you think that they didn't pass that down to their children and their grandchildren about how their loved ones were lynched? And now the museum is up there, and it can't be forgotten. Kids in school with this critical race theory need to know these things. And this is what the critical race theory is going to be teaching them. And it should be known. You can't grow and be successful and with the lie. And that's what America is living now. They're living a big lie. That's why Trump was able to do all the things he done and still have a following, because this country was based on a lie, and it's still based on a lie. Until all of this is truth genuine truth is going to be taught by putting the critical race theory in the schools, then America is not going to ever be the greatest country in the world. It's never been the greatest country in the world. And it never will be as long as these lies is being taught that the blacks didn't contribute, that we treated the blacks well, that when the blacks they was treated like animals, that they was three-fourths of a human being. This is what they taught. These millennials and these generations need to know that that's the way the blacks were treated. They need to understand that a human being is no three-fourths, no one-fourth. You either a human being or you're not. And once they learn these things, then they can look at America in a different light. They can say, hey, well, we got to make this up. Y'all need to pay these black people some reparation. And once these old baby boomers die out in the Senate and in the House, and they are dying out, and they will be dying out, and the new Generation X's and the new millennials be going in there, they're going to see to these black people getting their reparation, and they should get it. Every other race have gotten reparations. The Japanese have gotten it, and the Jews have gotten reparations for what the Germans did to them. So it's only fitting and right that the blacks get reparation for what has been done to their generation. And the millennials, once they know the truth about it, and the Generation X, once they get in Congress and rule Congress and become the president, stuff, they're going to see to it that the black race get their reparations. Critical race theory must be taught in the schools in order for this country to grow into the successful country so everybody can live the American dream. Do not let this guy and his cronies, this Christopher Rufo, and all of these other racist white supremacists keep these millennials and generations from learning the genuine truth about this country. That's all I got to share with you at this time, and I'm anxious to move on.